Hi, friends. Today I want to talk about after the awakening, whether it was a spiritual awakening or a rude awakening. I think that there's a process that we all go through, but it's really hard to talk about because life is messy and our journey and our process is going to be unique to each one of us and how long things take. But I think that there are 5 stages that I've contemplated over the years that have helped me understand this process. And I wanted to share that with you and see how it relates for you. I've studied many, many processes within design, within storytelling, within spiritual text, and there's usually a pattern. Like in the cycle of nature, we go through birth, death, and rebirth. But that transition between death and rebirth is where I think we get a little stuck in. So let's get into what this looks like. And the process is your own personal mess to personal enlightenment. The time it takes to complete is up to you, and how you walk through the journey is your awakening, turning into wisdom, your personal power, your full sovereignty. And then the next cycle begins. And so, stage one is the awakening. It's the tower. I like to use archetypes. It's the tower moment. And this is something from awe and inspiring, new insights, new perspectives, to something that's shocking that you have to process. This is the stage where we're getting new information out of nowhere. And now we have revelations. And we're going to have to figure out this is the beginning point, right? Most people talk about this spiritual awakening or this awakening that we all have, and we've all gone through it in many different areas in our life. But afterwards, we don't ever talk about the dismantling. And we have this understanding that you have to shed an old skin, an old life to have a new one, but we don't really go into the depths of it. So we're going to kind of deepen this today. So, stage two, once we have this awe and inspiration and this new insight and this new awareness, we go into hermit mode. We actually start to go within. And that's the nature of this awe, this inspiration, this towering moment in our lives. And we go in so that we can review. And we review those insights and we reflect upon them and we look at different areas in our lives and we contemplate. And we start to see things differently. We have a new lens, we have a new eye, we have a new perspective. And everything starts to feel good until we start to get into situations where we don't like what we see. We don't like the life that was in front of us. We don't necessarily agree with some of the things that people have said to us or the way that they've treated us. We now have a new way of looking at things. And so this is the stage three, which is, I call this the judgment stage. When we hit stage three, this is a really, really important stage because here we're judging. We're judging ourselves. We're judging others. We're looking at their behaviors. We're looking at their actions, and we're weighing it out. We have an awakening. We're going within. We're seeing a new perspective. And now we're going to judge the situation in this whole new perspective and lens. And in stage four is the Wheel of Fortune, the dismantling of the old, of the conflicts, of the resolutions, and looking at the world in a new perspective. And we get stuck between stage 3 and 4. And this is where I think most people think about the universe is testing you. The universe isn't necessarily testing you. You have new information and knowledge. We found that in stage 1. Now in stage 3, you have to apply that knowledge. And that in a way is a test. You're testing yourself to see, did I absorb this insight? Did I absorb this spiritual teaching, this spiritual enlightenment, this rude awakening? Did it kick me in a certain way that I now can discern better and move forward? Because in stage 4, we have this Wheel of Fortune and we want to change our fortune. We have these awakenings because there's something inside of us in our soul and our spirit that wants to move us forward. But we get stuck with the old stories of the past. And so this is stage 3. This is stage 3 trying to move into stage 4. And this is where we get stuck because there's a dismantling that has to happen. And in this dismantling, we now have to apply that knowledge and we have to decide, what do we want to take with us? What do we need to transform and mend? And what do we just need to let go and let that be in the past? And we have a hard time letting things go. We have a hard time with change. We love the insights. We have rushes of adrenaline running through us. We get these beautiful, beautiful ideas. But when we actually have to put them into practice or test that, it becomes difficult. When we can move through judgment, when we can move through not judging ourselves, really, it's really the lack of judgment or the compassion that comes with judgment. It's making sure that the justice is rightfully so in how you decide who was right and who was wrong. And you start to learn that there's a lot of truth in both sides of things. We move into stage 5, which is temperance. This is full acceptance of the nature of ourselves and others, and there's no more resistance to change. We've resolved the conflict. However, you've decided to move forward, however, you've decided to create peace in your life, this is the stage where we're now accepting what is. How someone is, who they are, instead of fighting against it or trying to change it, you let it be at peace. Instead of fighting with yourself against your nature, you understand who you are and you work with it. And then we get into stage 6, which is this high priestess stage. So we've now taken this beautiful awakening, whether it was rude or perfectly divine. We've taken this awakening and we've integrated it. We have integrated it into our lives, into all these stages, into finally stage 6, we're embodying the wisdom of that knowledge. And so this is where we're in full alignment. We're fully our energetic being. Our self-wisdom is coming through because we know we have a deeper knowing and understanding. We have stories behind us with that knowledge. And so we get really caught up in moving into that place. And sometimes those stages get hit and we're in stage 6 for 4 out of the 5 areas in our life. But there's a couple areas where we're still kind of stuck in stage 3 and stage 4. And so I just wanted to articulate this because if we can start to see maybe where we're at on our journey, we'll have a better time knowing that what we're attaining is just around the corner. And it's just really taking that step of how do I embody this wisdom of self? How do I just accept what is? How can I just accept without any resistance the change that I want to bring into my life, the change that needs to happen, and allow people to be who they are and continue to move forward with grace and dignity? It's the integrity of yourself as you develop and you keep moving into these cycles that your awakenings are going to just unfold. I want to say that your awakenings are going to unfold a little bit easier. But who's to say, right? We have all these different scenarios and situations, and every new level and new challenge is supposed to meet us where we're at. I just wanted to offer up a guidance, a guidepost, a map, so that when we're in these places, and sometimes we stay there a little bit longer than we need to, that this is just a moment. This is a stage on that bridge that we're crossing from one portal, that portal of the old life to the new life. It's not just a quick, I'm going to put one foot in and then the other, and I'm in this new life. There's a journey to cross in between the two. And we want to understand what those pieces are so that when we hit that, we know, okay, this is where I'm in my judgment phase and I want to get into my wheel of fortune phase. I want to change my fortune. I want to have this awakening and do something with it because I'm given this gift of insight, which means I can hold this, embody this sacred knowledge within me and build a better life, keep building and expanding on what I have, that my temperance, my patience, and my full acceptance and my lack of resistance to change is telling me that I'm already embodying the wisdom. And then the next step is to completely fulfill those actions. And so these journeys can happen in the same day, or they could take years, depending on what area of our life we're focused on. And I know that you've all gone through these processes before, but I've never found anyone that's been able to articulate it. So I sat down and I thought, this is something worth sharing so that when we're stuck, right? Sometimes we're at the bottom of that stage and we want to just move forward and we have this dip that happens. We get really, really excited and then we kind of plummet down. So what was really high, this like high vibration of this awakening, gravity is just taking hold and it's hitting us down into the depths so that we can clean house, so that we can uproot if we need to, so that we can reinvest in ourselves, re-establish a new pattern, a new belief system, if it's that big for you, right? If this is a big awakening and you have to adjust. And so you have to rebuild the foundation that's down below. And then we need the same kind of momentum, but it's different to kind of rise back up. This is also the same pattern that we see in creativity. Whenever you're creating something, it's that same thing. You have this really big spark, this big idea of something that you want to do, and the reality sets in of actually putting it down, the work it's going to take piece by piece. This could be big projects where you want to do something that could take your whole life. It could take years. It could take whatever time it's going to take. And so we kind of hit sometimes a dip. It's kind of called the valley of death because it can be really grueling. But once we've gotten to a certain point and we go further and we're actually starting to execute and put things out in the world, we gain back that momentum. Now we're embodying that idea that we had in our work and our creativity, or whatever creativity you have for you. But it's always this sense, this awakening, this cycle. And this is the death to rebirth transition. Because once we get into that stage 6 and we're in full embodiment, we're reborn again. We've integrated all of those pieces. We're integrating the light, which is that aha moment, that really high spark of inspiration. And then we're integrating the shadow, which is really the underbelly, the hermit, the going within, the contemplation, the understanding of how things were playing in your life and who and how things were interacting. And then we're moving up and out. Most people get caught up in the stages 3 and 4. That's kind of this rut that I see people in. I've seen myself in this rut as well. These 2 stages. And what we forget is that this is a really important stage. We don't want to dismiss this stage, but we don't want to get stuck here. What these 2 stages are for is really the character build. This is where we see what we're made of. This is where we build our strength. This is where we build our character, our integrity. This is where we really set our own new beliefs if we need to, our own standards of living. This is where we define our standards and our values. And we're really redefining who we are. Whatever had happened, right? Whatever the situation was that awoken you into some new insight or a new reveal of what the situation really was, most likely it was the truth. And so in that truth, you have to now see what's next for you. How do you want to respond to that and regrow from that? And so that's a beautiful spot. But when we stay there too long, we then wallow. We then have self-pity parties. We then say, why me? We get caught up in these things. And we have all been there. I have absolutely been there. I have stayed too long in that spot. I have definitely teeter-tottered in that spot for years, only to look back and, really think about how easy it could have been just to get further out of that. But there was no process. There was no way to understand kind of the full scope of things. I like to see from a bird's eye view everything. And so I just thought this might be really helpful to see where you're at on your own journey. And you might be in stage 6 in your career, but maybe you're in stage 3 in a relationship, or vice versa. And you can be in different stages and different levels in different areas of your life. You're a very complex being. You're a very that you have so much depth to you as a creative, as a co-creator, as this divine being. You're going to have multiplicities. You're going to have multi-layers inside of you and around you in your life. So if you feel that you're in a stage and you've been there too long, evaluate, how can you go to the next stage? How can you move forward on your path and you rebuild? And it's so important that we understand that these awakenings are meant for our own growth, and they're meant for us to develop ourselves and really get to know who we are and what we're made of. And we won't know that, unfortunately, until we're faced with challenges. There's no other way around it. So when we have a way that can guide us, when we have guides that can help, or guidance to help move us through, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for sure. Thank you all for being here. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.